The first explosion isn't dynamite, it's a budget. In a sun-struck desert, thousands drag stone toward a rising pyramid. A scribe scratches new numbers onto a wax tablet, rations per worker skyrocketing like a fire. In Versailles, clerks panic as palace costs swallow 40% of royal revenue. Ledgers swelling like infected wounds. In Cairo, a viceroy tears open the city to build boulevards and a canal, borrowing until Egypt's external debt balloons and foreign auditors arrive like conquerors. Centuries collapse into one scene. Cranes over empty stadiums. High-speed rails to nowhere, glittering towers built on municipal deficits. While your taxes rise and your wages stall. Screens freeze in a finance ministry as another mega project runs billions over budget. This isn't rumor. It's architecture weaponized by arithmetic. I will show you the monument pattern that bankrupted empires, and the concrete trap around you. It begins with dust in the lungs. The desert is a white furnace. Rows of men lean into ropes, dragging blocks that glitter in the burning light as overseers shout. The pyramid climbs, tier by stubborn tier, against a sky that does not care. Inside a shaded chamber, a clerk sits cross-legged with a wax tablet resting on his knees. The air is cool but heavy with sweat and scraped beeswax. He isn't looking at the monument. He is looking at numbers. Grain in, grain out. Laborers fed, stone hauled. Priests, soldiers, artisans, all siphoning from the same harvest. He presses his stylus into the wax, pausing before inscribing the new ration quota. He knows the granaries are emptying faster than they refill. The project meant to display power is quietly consuming it. Outside, the king's image is chiseled into stone, arms folded, eyes fixed and eternal. Priests mutter about glory, gods, and the afterlife. The court calls the pyramid an investment in divine legitimacy. The clerk knows better. He sees missing plows and draft animals diverted to haul stone instead of working the fields. He hears complaints from villages that sent too many bodies to the construction gangs. The project has become a second sun. Everything orbits it, burns for it. Weeks become years, the pyramid rises. Taxes climb as the state invents new levies and quotas. The first cracks in an empire do not appear on stone. They appear in households that cannot keep up. A child stands at the worksite, plow abandoned in a field behind him. A field lies fallow because its men are hauling blocks. An empty village square where a festival banner hangs unused over quiet stalls. The king will be entombed in permanence. But the system feeding his project is already less stable than before. All megastructures begin as promises that the ruler is timeless. The pattern starts with realizing the monument consumes more than it creates. A drying wax tablet lies before the clerk, its forming numbers sharp and final. Let me show you where this pattern leads. First, Versailles. The forest is hacked back until the land lies bare, ready to be reordered. Mud churns under laborers' boots as they haul earth and stone to carve a royal vision. The air smells of sap, sweat, and gunpowder from distant drills. At the center, the palace grows like a golden tumor. Hall after hall. Gallery after gallery. Mirrors shipped from afar, marble dragged and quarried, fountains built to defy gravity. Inside a cramped bureau of finance in Paris, the air is ink and wax. A clerk bends over account books that do not shine. He tallies war costs, pensions, road repairs, grain reserves with careful lines. The Versailles line item stretches across the page like a crack in glass. At first, the court calls it an investment, a tool to centralize power. But the maintenance alone begins to devour revenue. Candles, servants, repairs, entertainments, an endless stream of coin. Some years, the palace and rituals swallow more than provinces produce. Peasants in distant fields will never see Versailles, but they pay for every inch of gilded molding in sweat and taxes. When bad harvests come, you cannot shrink the palace. You cannot downsize marble. You cannot lay off fountains. You can only cut elsewhere. So the state trims grain subsidies and delays payments, and whispers that glory is worth the cost. The palace is fixed, everything else becomes variable. As revolution brews, Versailles stands untouched and out of time, a monument to a fiscal choice that helped doom the old regime. The palace will survive the monarchy. Stone and debt have different lifespans. Then comes the canal that opened a new age and closed an old one. Cairo is torn open under the Khedive like a patient on a table. Old streets are sliced open, boulevards carved like Paris, palaces rising along the Nile. Out in the desert, a gash is dug from sea to sea, the Suez Canal. A megastructure promising to drag Egypt into modernity. On paper, the project is triumphant. Engineers pose beside cuttings, diplomats toast new shipping lanes. But in the finance office, ledgers explode. To fund everything, the ruler borrows, again, and again. Interest mounts. External debt multiplies over a few decades. Taxes are wrung from fellahin who see little of the splendor. When revenues fail, the Khedive sells canal shares, pieces of national control. Chunks of national control. Sovereignty erodes as foreign oversight grows. European advisors sit in Egyptian ministries. supervising budgets and dictating creditor payments. The state is hollowed from the inside. Its monuments become map pins marking lost independence. Finally, the city that sold itself. Pick a name: Buenos Aires, Haussmann's Paris, late Imperial Rome. The pattern is interchangeable. Grand avenues and triumphal arches, government complexes meant to impress dignitaries and frighten dissent. The skyline is edited for vanity. Old neighborhoods razed and replaced by plazas that drain treasuries quietly. Municipal bonds are issued. Foreign lenders are flattered into buying. Construction budgets are revised upward again and again, each revision approved with a shrug, because who would question progress? Years later, cranes gone, the city keeps its proud skyline over a balance sheet that wheezes. Services are cut. Maintenance is deferred. The marble cracks. The lights flicker. The megastructures remain, their shadow longer than the regimes that ordered them. In every case, the same story in different costumes. Stone and water moved on a scale that flatters rulers and frightens accountants. The cost spreads across people who never see the ledger, only the rising tax bill beneath it. Sovereignty traded slowly, for the right to keep the monuments lit. You've walked through these structures on vacation. You've admired the ceilings, the views, the cleverness of the engineering. You were walking through the wreckage of balance sheets. Now the cranes swing over steel instead of stone. The air vibrates with the thud of piling rigs, the whine of angle grinders, the bark of foremen over radios. A new mega airport rises from reclaimed land. A stadium blossoms in a poor neighborhood like a concrete flower. A high-speed rail line carves an arrogant straight line between two cities that already had trains. Shot 1, a nighttime skyline. Towers of glass and LED crown the city, lights tracing logos into the sky. At ground level, scaffolding still clings to several mega-projects. A new opera house, a convention center, a world's largest something. Billboards promise prosperity in glossy font. Shot 2, a windowless room in the finance ministry. Screens glow with spreadsheets. The air is stale, the carpet worn. Officials study a fiscal projection where public debt interest climbs sharply, rising like a wall. Hidden inside those lines are the megastructures. Each stadium, dam, bridge, and tower encoded as amortization schedules and minimum payments. Decades into the future. In many countries, construction binges push public debt so high that interest alone consumes huge revenue. Some budgets devote over 10% to servicing loans taken for these transformational projects. In others, megaproject overruns add 20, 30, 50% beyond initial estimates. Numbers smoothed away in press releases but brutal in bond prospectuses. Shot 3, a construction site gone silent. Weeds push through rebar. A half-finished highway overpass hangs in midair, connected to nothing. The sign out front still boasts the original completion date, long past, like a joke. Local kids ride bikes in the empty parking lots of an unopened mall. The company that won the bid is gone. The subcontractors were never fully paid. The bank that financed it has moved the loans into a special portfolio. In the end, the state will take responsibility. It always does. Shot 4, a living room, yours. You scroll past news of another world's tallest, another mega event, another fabricated smart city. At the same time, your rent notice sits on the table, nudged just a little higher. Your payslip is flatter than the skyline is tall. An extra tax appears on the electricity bill, vague in its wording. Infrastructure contribution. You don't connect the two. You were not invited to the ribbon cutting, but you are drafted into the repayment. Shot 5, a server room. Rows of machines blink in a low, constant hum, a digital temple. Here reside the bonds and loans, municipal debt packaged and sold to pension funds. Sovereign issues bought by foreign investors, special purpose vehicles hiding obligations off the main books. A risk manager watches exposure spike on his monitor as a country pours concrete into grandiose projects. The borrowing curve steepens, rating agencies mutter, spreads widen. The double hammer falls. First comes the fiscal blow. Monument debt pushes national obligations beyond what small rate increases can absorb. A small benchmark hike from a central bank suddenly adds billions in interest across interconnected loans. Second comes the personal blow. As the state defends its credit rating, it tightens everywhere else. Officials shuffle papers as wage tables freeze, subsidies shrink on screen, and new service fees populate the ledger. Your future tax payments, not yet earned, are already pledged to structures you may never enter. Like Versailles, the stadium cannot be resized when budgets fail. Like Suez, the prestige rail line cannot be easily sold without surrendering control. Like the pyramid, the megadam will stand long after the regime that ordered it is gone. Its maintenance costs inherited by people who never approved key birth. This is the pattern. Rulers buy immortality in stone and steel. And they pay with your time, your taxes, your shrinking portion of a budget strained by legacy costs. You feel it when your city raises fares instead of fixing sewers, because it must service bonds for a convention center that sits empty half the year. You feel it when a national debt scare triggers sudden cuts in hospitals, but not in the defense megaprojects that line the horizon with concrete. The modern bond market doesn't need to topple empires with a shout. It just stops rolling over their monument debt on friendly terms. And the screen in the finance ministry freezes for a long, dangerous second. Monuments are easier to build than to unwind. When the weight becomes unbearable, the system has only three ways out. First, controlled erosion. Governments quietly inflate away the real value of their megastructure debts. They do not say this out loud. They talk about flexible inflation targets, stimulus, competitiveness. But the math is simple. Debts in stronger past money are repaid later with weaker, cheaper bills. Over decades, debt ratios improve not through discipline, but because prices rise faster than officials admit. The palace, the dam, the stadium still stand. Their interest payments are made in currency that buys less of everything else. Your savings feel it first. Deposits erode, pensions stumble, safe assets underperform the cost of living. Sovereign bonds that finance those megastructures yield less in real terms than inflation takes. The monument is defended. Your purchasing power is sacrificed on its altar. Second, chaotic fracture. Sometimes the erosion isn't enough or it goes too far. A country misses a payment. A city can't refinance. In a courtroom, prosecutors lift documents and point to mega projects now presented as evidence of corruption and mismanagement. Bond markets yank away financing. Yields spike. Construction firms go bankrupt. Local banks wobble under the strain of non-performing loans. A sovereign once parading dignitaries through gleaming terminals now sends delegations to negotiate restructuring in bland rooms. At street level, tempers break. Protesters gather in the plazas between ministries built in better times. Some shout about ideology, others about party politics. Many are angry that no money exists for basics when palaces, games, and signature towers always found funding. Graffiti appears on the base of statues. Windows crack. The monumental core of the capital becomes a backdrop for tear gas. Workers shutter half-built projects, lock gates, and auction equipment for a fraction of key cost. Foreign buyers take stakes in ports, power plants, and highways, trading debt relief for sovereignty. Like Suez shares or Ottoman customs houses, the megastructure becomes a toll booth for others. Third, architectural rewrite. Sometimes the regime itself falls. A new government or a revolution inherits the same structures and the same debts. It can repudiate some obligations, renegotiate others, rename projects, tear down a statue or two. Crews move through the city's massive works, inspecting aging structures that still demand constant maintenance. New flags are hoisted over old stadiums. New portraits hang in the same vast halls. New speeches echo under domes built by prior rulers who thought they had secured eternity. Underneath the cosmetic changes, budgets still bend around the megastructures. The new order may build its own, repeating the cycle with fresh enthusiasm. Convinced it will manage things more wisely this time. It never quite does. None of these outcomes are predictions for one specific country. They are the three paths history has offered every state that overdosed on monument debt. Slow bleed. Sudden crack. New architecture, old burdens. You live inside this forked road. Your lifetime taxes already flow into projects chosen by men gone long before the bills mature. Your pension-linked sovereign debt ties future income to buildings and bridges you never voted for. You are not a spectator to megastructure madness. You are the guarantee. Return to the first image. The workers still strain at the ropes. The pyramid still grows, step by relentless step. The king still imagines that stone can trap time, but now you can see the ghostly overlays, Versailles mirrored over the desert, its halls stretching out like mirages, the Suez Canal slicing through the sand, an incision funded by signatures in distant banks, an empty Olympic stadium flickering in and out of existence, its concrete shell perched on the same fragile base of taxes and borrowed money. A ruler points toward the sky, commanding builders to raise monuments proving he is more than temporary. History answers with a shrug and an invoice. Empires grow confident and convert surplus into symbols, pyramids, cathedrals, palaces, dams, spaceports, skyscrapers. The first waves may be affordable, even useful, but excess is irresistible. Soon the surplus is gone, and the monuments keep coming. The state doubles down, borrowing against tomorrow to finish what it started yesterday. Long after the ribbon is cut, the costs continue. Long after the lights fade, the interest remains. In the end, the monuments stand like gravestones for the regimes that built them. Tourists marvel. Guides recite dates. Few notice the revenue and national will silently diverted to raise each arch, dome, and tower. You live in the newest chapter of the same epic. Your world is ringed with megastructures, some noble, some absurd, all hungry. The ledgers are invisible, yet you feel them whenever governments tighten belts without touching marble lobbies. A historian walks through a deserted stadium, an underused airport, and a monumental parliament, tracing the silence debt has etched into concrete, and run her hand along the cracked concrete. She will not talk first about politics or ideology or culture. She will say, this is what they chose to build instead of solvency. The workers in the desert vanish into dust. The palace at Versailles reflects its own emptiness. The canal glitters under foreign flags. The stadium rusts while bonds tied to it still trade at a discount. The wheel has turned before. It is turning now, in stone and steel and screens full of numbers. The megastructures will outlive their makers, but not their debts. The ledger remembers, and it always collects them in marble, in concrete, and in your future. To see how today's world repeats this pattern, and how to protect yourself, watch the next chapter. History doesn't whisper, it invoices.